Stories that time forgot.
A Norwegian captain cuts the engines in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Instead of the thunder of ice crashing against steel, he records only an absolute silence, confirming the most lucrative geopolitical nightmare of the 21st century. The deep sea black gold, the Arctic War. Imagine for a moment that you are standing on the deck of a massive cargo ship. The air is so cold it burns your lungs, but the sea before you is eerily calm, with no sign of the white ice walls that should be blocking your path. On August 15, 2010, the Nordic Orion did exactly that. It set sail from Vancouver for Finland, carrying 65,000 tons of thermal coal. What made this trip historic was its route. It didn't pass through the Panama Canal or around the dangerous Cape Horn. The captain decided to sail north, cross the Bering Strait, and entered the labyrinth of islands of the Canadian Arctic archipelago. For 17 days, the Nordic Orion sailed through waters that, historically, remained frozen 360 days a year. On August 26, it emerged in the North Atlantic off the coast of Greenland. It had cut 1,200 kilometers off its usual journey, saving $300,000 in fuel and tolls. But you and I know that the true cost was not financial. It was the starting pistol for a new silent war. That UNESCO-escorted voyage marked the beginning of a race for control of the Arctic. It is not a war of traditional cannons, but a war of maps, maritime laws, and oil rigs anchored in ice that is vanishing. You must understand the magnitude of what lies beneath that frigid water. Under the polar ice cap lies 22% of the planet's undiscovered energy. We are talking about 167 billion barrels of oil equivalent and 300 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. These are deposits that remained inaccessible for millions of years because the sea ice acted as an impregnable natural shield. However, between 1980 and 2020, the Arctic warmed at a rate 3 times higher than the global average. The minimum area of sea ice in September collapsed from 7 million square kilometers in 1980 to just 3.7 million in 2020. The Northwest Passage, the mythical route that cost the lives of John Franklin and his 129 men in 1845, has become navigable without icebreakers for 3 months a year. The Northeast Passage, along the Siberian coast, is open for 5 months. With the opening of these routes, world powers have deployed a territorial control strategy that would take your breath away. Russia leads this race with an audacity that blends imperial nostalgia and fierce energy pragmatism. In 2007, a Russian expedition descended in a bathyscaphe to the bottom of the Arctic Ocean and planted a titanium flag. This is an underwater mountain range that Russia claims as a natural extension of its continental shelf. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, a country can extend its sovereignty beyond 200 nautical miles. Russia has filed 3 successive claims to expand its Arctic continental shelf by an additional 1.2 million square kilometers. That is an area equivalent to Peru and Colombia combined, which would include the geographic North Pole itself. Since 2008, it has reopened 6 Soviet-era military bases. In 2015, it inaugurated the Nagerskoye base. Long-range radars, anti-missile systems, and a runway capable of receiving large strategic bombers operate there. At the same time, the state-owned company Gazprom drilled the first oil well in permanently frozen Arctic waters in 2012, known as Prirazlamnoy. This platform is designed to withstand ice pressure of up to 2 meters thick and currently produces 300,000 barrels a day. By 2030, Russia plans to operate 13 similar platforms. Its goal is for the Arctic to provide 30% of its national oil production. And what is the United States doing in the meantime? Its response is much more fragmented and, for many experts, insufficient. The U.S. Coast Guard operates only 2 heavy icebreakers, the Polar Star and the Polar Sea, both built in the 1970s. While Russia deploys a fleet of 40 icebreakers, many of them nuclear-powered, the United States barely has the capacity to patrol. In 2019, the U.S. administration declared that the Arctic is no longer a remote frontier, but a new frontier of opportunity. Meanwhile, the Navy conducts symbolic naval exercises but lacks the permanent infrastructure its rivals already possess. Canada, for its part, finds itself in an existential dilemma, possessing 60% of the world's Arctic coastline. This tension worsened when the Chinese research vessel Zhulong 2 sailed through the passage without Canadian authorization. Beijing responded with absolute silence. China, despite having no coastline at the pole, calls itself a near-Arctic state. In its official strategy titled The Polar Silk Road, it claims access to resources and routes. It has already signed agreements with Iceland and Greenland to build ports. They want a seat at the table. The real battlefield is not just the ice you see floating, but the international courts. Denmark, representing Greenland, has also claimed the geographic North Pole. Canada did the same in 2019. Every scientific expedition mapping the seabed isn't just looking for fish. It's looking for geological evidence to win territory. The irony of all this is almost cruel. Global warming is melting the ice that protected those very same fuels. It is estimated that the melting of the permafrost will release massive amounts of methane by 2050. We fight to control the resources that, when used, end up destroying the environment we are trying to conquer. In 2023, a small incident showed how close we are to conflict. A Norwegian fishing boat became trapped in the ice. Norway, smelling the sovereignty trap, rejected the Russian offer and sent its own icebreaker. There are no land invasions, but there are nuclear submarines patrolling under the ice like invisible sharks. The United States recently sent the nuclear attack sub Connecticut on a secret mission under the ice cap. Russia responded with missile exercises from its northern bases. China continues to launch state-of-the-art icebreakers. If the Arctic becomes fully navigable in summer by 2040, do you think the powers will remain calm? What do you think will happen when the last block of ice disappears and only war flags remain? Like and subscribe to discover more stories time forgot.